Today, obviously, there was some news regarding the transfer portal and regarding LSU. Now, I will admit, I do think, and when these started coming through, they're a little bit interesting. And I understand what your mindset is when you see the pair of guys that entered the transfer portal from LSU today. John Emery, the running back from Destrehan, going into his 6th year, entered the transfer portal as a grad transfer. There was a lot of people telling me that he had redshirted in specific years. The only time that I remember, obviously, John Emery never playing more than 4 games would have been in 2021, the year that he set out, which means that Ed Orgeron had to have done the young man a massive favor that when he was academically ineligible, he took a red shirt and now is using the COVID year that he got in 2021 to continue his football legacy. Now, in reference to John Emery, look, his time at LSU was very up and down, vastly up and down. There were a lot of times that he showed immense talent. I think that there were times that he showed that why people had him as a 5-star running back and on 247 was the number one running back in the country, was actually the number 11 recruit in the country that year. The score against Alabama, actually multiple scores against Alabama. He scored the first touchdown, if you remember, in 22 on that little wheel route from Jane Daniels where he goes up the sideline. It's actually was this one. I think we put it in our cover art today, but look at Shaq. Look at Shaq's big ass. But the one that he went down the sideline and would score on the wheel route from Jaden Daniels. But the inconsistencies, the academic issues, the reasoning behind the academic issues that the NCAA investigated that wind up not coming to bear in his favor. And look, I was very open and honest about John Emery, and it was very open and honest about John Emery the second time when he got academically ineligible at LSU. Like, okay, one time, shame on you, shame on me, meaning LSU. Twice, shame on you. So a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of up and downs. This, I do think, should tell people, don't always freak out about not landing the 5-star, especially here. You're going to have probably a top 5, top 6 wide receiver, and they won't tell you this, but you and I remember this because we watch recruiting. But Malik Neighbors was a 3-star until he committed to LSU all those times. He didn't play his senior year in high school. That means nothing. I remember a guy and Dwight McLaughlin that lost his 5th star because he refused to go to 247's, whatever you call it. That was at least the excuse at the time by the reporters who put out the publishing of Dwight McLaughlin. And so, look, I thank John Emery for all that he has done here. I mean, look, there's been times of really good stuff and times of really, really bad stuff. So in 2021, he takes the red shirt, and good on Ed Orgeron and company for doing him a solid on that one. And then in 2020, obviously having the COVID year and the free year there as well. So, I mean, I will be real with you. Didn't really come to light to me because I guess him having the torn ACL and just not thinking that he would be eligible here any longer. He is, and he was, I'm assuming, told to move on because they got to make some room here. And I don't think that they want to continue down the John Emery train. The second one today was Joe Big Hoss Cryer from, I'll just say Manny because that's where he spent most of his time in his career. Very interesting. And because the kid is an early enrollee, and either the writing was on the wall or LSU just saw that maybe the kid can't play here. And it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. I do wish Big Hoss success in his career. He's always been good to us, always been nice to us. Yes, sir. No, sir. Look, man, unless it's the kid's decision, I don't agree with processing early enrollees, nor do I agree with letting them walk. We got to come to a place where, man, you need to stay somewhere and get developed. Now, are there other issues in play here? I don't know. I've heard a couple of things. I don't know, but it's very unfortunate. However, I don't know how much the kid would have played here. And that is the sad truth. Cohen Eccles committing, I think so, and playing center solidified what most believe as who's going to be the center behind DJ Chester and is the future. So, unfortunately, I don't think Big Hoss would have played here. And I don't mean that in any a wrong way. So, guys, they continue to open up. They continue to show that they're opening up space for not just multiple DTs, but, guys, you're opening up enough space to where if you want to go get somebody else and another position that you really think that you need, running back, you can do it. I don't think you're done in the portal. Like, I during this time, guys, when I'm on a show and I can't look at my phone the whole time or I can't do this, I'm constantly refreshing things. We got the phone text line here, and we got Twitter right here because things are always happening. Do I expect more news about the portal or a medical retirement? Yes, I do. I 100% do. And it all is based off of one position, the position that you've been worst in. And we've talked about this the last 3 days, and we'll continue to talk about it until it's into the fruition of what LSU needs. Bottom line, I do feel better, and I'm starting to feel better about where you're at that position. Now, I do think that Brian Kelly is doing things behind the scenes that people don't know about. We live in a world where NIL has become a big thing. And I think Brian Kelly gets labeled something in recruiting that isn't always accurate. So I'm just going to give you a God's honest truth here. And you know this. The portal, majority of the time, where can I play? Who's got the most money? And that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. Barrow has just been on a visit. You'll get CJ Weston on a visit. You'll get Williams from TCU in on a visit, you hope. And you got more guys that are in the portal. Tyler Barron hitting the portal. What goes on with him? Do you get involved there? So bottom line, you are seeing and understanding what LSU is going after. Guys, LSU, regardless of what Brian Kelly has said in media time or post-practice press conferences, guys, there's a potential they could take 3 or 4, and if they do, that should tell you everything that you need to know or what they believe or what Bo Davis and Kevin Peoples believes about this defensive line. And I think the writing's on the wall. So I say all that to say I am, from an overall perspective, some things that I'm hearing, am starting to feel a little bit more confident. I will caution, when it comes to the portal, you got to be able to close. And the way that you close in today's world, you know what walks and you know what talks. I will leave it there. So, can you close will be the ultimate question. They have done it multiple times. They will continue to do it. And LSU, from when they've needed something, has not been barren when it comes to, pun intended, when it comes to needing money. When they need it, they'll get it. I think that you can see on social media today that a 5-star recruit signed his first NIL deal while being a new defensive tackle at LSU. So, again, I will continue to tell you, you're not behind. You may be a little bit unorganized, but I think Brian Kelly is starting to get some things rolling there. Okay. Let me get to this before I get to some comments here. I actually hadn't looked at them, but just in case that we need to. Let me say this very quickly. Yeah, I was high on Big Hoss. I just don't after seeing him, I don't think he could play here. And that's my fault, and that's my misevaluation. And I will wear it. That's on me. Guys, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I thought he could play center here when he got here. But see, here's the problem with that, Chili. I also could be wrong on being wrong. Am I gonna go based off of a semester of the kid who's supposed to be a senior in high school? Right? Like, we don't give him any grace whatsoever to develop. Now, if the kid winds up somewhere and then comes back, I do think that that's very plausible. I do think the kid could go to a lower level and then come back, get some reps, get some experience. He needs to get bigger, stronger, and faster, or quicker. He's got to get stronger now. So does Cohen Eccles. So it is what it is. All right, let me get to this, because I got to get to Rufino's rants, because this is revolving football and revolving Brian Kelly. Now, let me preface this by saying I don't care what your feelings are about Colin Cowherd, but he had an interview today with Brian Kelly that I thought was very, very good. Now, either Colin Cowherd was asking very good questions or Brian Kelly was more open. I think Cowherd, who is arguably one of the best in the business, framed questions to Brian Kelly about the draft, but I'm not really worried about the draft. Look, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., we know what we know. He said what he needed to say, and he is correct in the things that he said. But Brian Kelly was asked about being in the SEC and this year's football team. The question that Colin Cowherd posed to Brian Kelly, and why I do think it's a big deal, was this. Brian, 10 wins at LSU isn't enough. And what do you need to do moving forward? And also what Colin Cowherd framed it as to Brian Kelly, and you'd have to go listen to it, is, Brian, you had SEC level depth at the end of your tenure at Notre Dame. What's going on at LSU? Basically, he was asking, hey, you had to have a really good, really big rebuild after Orgeron. Where are you right now? You've had a lot of talent, but where are you depth-wise? And Brian Kelly said the following. Look, they gave me, basically, and I'm paraphrasing to some extent, look, they gave me some grace, but when the roster when I got here just simply wasn't good enough. You have to build your roster better, and I do think now we're in a far better place than we were when I got here. I agree with him. But he continues, and I think that this is very key. He says, now the time is going into year 3, we need to compete for a playoff spot. What Brian Kelly is telling you is, I understand and have heard and hear you in reference to playoff or bust. I think that Brian Kelly can lead you there. I still have a lot of faith in him to lead you there. I don't think that he gets the credit that he deserves in how bad the roster was into where it is. Because, and we've talked about this, him winning the West in year 1 put him in an unfair place. What I will say is, him saying that on the Herd today validates to me he knows exactly what needs to be done. It also validates me, if you get there, good, you hit your goal. Secondly, if you don't get there, you're underachieving on your goal. So I think he understands that. I think that he also understands and has seen, listen, I do think that we're probably and arguably a position away from being in that mix, being in that 12 mix, actually 11 mix, because one group of 5 teams is going to get in, and it's unfair. The context of what put it all together for me and solidifying that being exactly what he was saying was this. Cowherd would follow up by saying, tell me something good about the transfer portal. And Brian Kelly said this. Some players that cannot play here escape to a better program or another program. He didn't say better. Another program where they can play and be developed. However, we can also make our roster better by going and getting kids from lower schools to bring here and make our roster better. I told you last night, and this is not a hypocritical thing from Brian Kelly because he's never really said this. I mean, he's been open about the portal the whole time. So this doesn't really revolve around him. But guys, this is players getting cut, players being processed is really a thing here. And we don't care about it because we want to make our roster better. What he's telling you without telling you, hey, man, we understand that we got to get some DTs and some D linemen in here so that we can have the potential to make the playoff. Going to lower schools, which I think Michigan State is a lower school. TCU is a lower school. Kent State is a lower school. To get some of those guys here so that we can compete in the SEC and make a playoff. I really do believe that it was his most real press conference or / interview that he has done. And it's only 10 minutes. You can go watch it at the end of the show. Well, actually, you can wait until after Ruffino and Joe show that comes up at 6. So right immediately following this one, then you can go and watch it. I thought that was really good. Guys, the truth is, and Brian Kelly knows this, it is playoffs or bust. Because you are a place where you need to be in the top 12 every single year. There is no debate. Like, you could say, all right, maybe being in the playoff when it's only 4 teams every year might be, I don't want to say unrealistic, but it's just not going to happen every single year. But now that the playoff is at 12, it better have, if a 12-team playoff happened 10 times, you better make it 7, 8 times. You better make it 7 or 8 times. That is the mantra. And some of you will say you need to make it 10 out of 10 times, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I'm trying to give some grace and leeway. Because if you have a massive year like you did in 2019, you have all those guys leave, it could be a massive issue. Understanding where you are, understanding who you are, and understanding the place that you're at is a big deal. And look, he's been around the block for a while now, and he understands it. Guys, we will obviously not right now, but when we start getting, in June and July, and we start, hey, camp is right around the corner. You got USC game 1. How, both teams have new DCs. Both teams have new look defenses. How does Garrett Nussmeier do against a team that he has no idea defensively what they're going to do at him? Now, I'll tell you what they're going to do at him. They're going to blitz him all the live long day. They're not going to sit back on their heels like they did a lot last year with Alex Grinch. By the way, you go to Vegas. Guys, you got to win game 1. And we're going to find out. But this year, your expectation of this program, without question, and look, it's not even my opinion when your head coach is out there saying it. So you can say, oh, well, Blake's just putting this on Brian. No, Brian Kelly went out there and said it. So where do I think you are in that situation and scenario? Here's where I think you are. I think that you are in a place where if you're able to add some interior defensive linemen or more defensive linemen, I could make the argument that if things go your way, you are now a playoff team. You are a top 12 team. And I don't care what these Rudy Poos on these preseason rankings tell you. I would rather them put LSU lower to the bottom. Put them at 7. Put them at 8. Please, dear Lord, put them there. Because every time you do, that's when LSU rises up. You have a lot of talented pieces. And there's a lot of negativity because negativity sells more than positivity. There's a lot of positives around this football team and a lot of really good players on this football team. Do I think that right now you are a 9-win team? You're right there on the brink. Man, I don't know if they can make the playoff. Yeah, because I do think that you have a massive weakness in the interior defensive line room. I do think that defensive line in the interior, when boosted up, can make you a playoff team. Now, you got a lot of questions if you can make a Final Four, make a semifinal, or even make it to a national championship game. That's neither here nor there at the current moment. But, guys, you arguably have the best offensive line in the country. You have one of the best receivers returning, which we'll actually talk about on Rufino and Joe show, and I'm sure Joe will argue me on this with Kyron Lacy. You have some really talented pieces.